This is Lesson 2, Part 2. Here's our reading of Shipwreck. Alone in a small boat, a sailor watched the rising sun splash crimson streaks across the sky and glisten on the still, dark surface of the Adriatic Sea. It was a lovely Mediterranean dawn, but the sailor had no time to linger over the beauty of a sight he had seen 1,000 times before. Instead, his sleepless eyes gazed anxiously at the horizon, straining to see. As the sun rose higher and the day brightened, the sailor began to make out dark shapes in the distance. At first, they looked like clouds. Then, as the boat slowly got closer, he saw that they were hills. His heart leaped and beat faster. A fresh wind filled his sails and blew his craft forward. Soon he could make out clusters of trees on the lower slopes of the hills, and beneath them, jagged rocks that appeared to float on the blue-black sea. Now, in spite of the distance, the sailor knew that these were the cliffs and mountains of Ithaca, his island home. Beloved, long lost Ithaca. At once, the weariness of 17 sleepless days and nights alone at the sea dissolved, forgotten. Tears of joy streamed down the sailor's salt lined face into his black beard. After long years of war, wandering, and captivity, he, Odysseus, was coming home. But he had thanked the gods too soon. The storm appeared from the south and struck without warning. Black clouds massed overhead, thunder cracked, and lightning snaked across the sky. A fierce tempest whipped up at the sea so suddenly that there was no time to haul in the sails. Odysseus clung helplessly to the rudder as his boat was tossed from wave to wave. The mast snapped, narrowly missing him as it fell. The next moment, an enormous wave crashed across the deck and swept him out to the angry sea. By the time he had struggled breathless to the surface, his boat was nowhere to be seen. Odysseus found himself floating next to the broken mast. He grabbed a hold of it and leashed himself to it with his belt. As he did so, a giant wave swelled up from the seething water and towered over him. He looked up at the arching crest in terror. Poseidon, god of the sea, stared angrily down at him, brandishing his great trident. Then the wave crashed down, and everything went black. Suddenly, the skies cleared, the wind dropped, the storm was over. Odysseus left for dead. But he was not dead. Although he was battered, unconscious, and half drowned, the mast kept him afloat as he drifted, oblivious, away from the shores of his long-lost kingdom. Hours later, he came to, bruised, sore, and so weak that he could barely lift his head to look around. In every direction, the sea stretched off, empty to the horizon. He was completely lost. Just when it seemed that his prayers had been answered and Ithaca was in sight, fate had played its cruelest trick. The gods would have been much kinder to have let him die years ago, hundreds of miles from home. Overcome with grief, he buried his face in his arms. Great sobs of despair welled up from his heart. He did not see the seagull settle on his mast and change into the shape of a beautiful woman. It was the sea nymph Ino. Odysseus looked up, astonished, when she spoke to him in a voice half human, half divine. Poor Odysseus, what have you done to make Poseidon so angry? You may have survived the storm, but without my help you will drift around and around under the scorching sun until you wish you had never been born. Your only hope of reaching land alive is to swim with the currents. I will give you an enchanted scarf that will protect you and keep you afloat when you are too tired to swim. As soon as you reach the shore, you must throw it back into the sea. The sea nymph slipped the scarf from her waist and gently tied it around Odysseus. Then, changing back into a seagull, she spread her wings and flew on her way. Odysseus gazed after her. Bitter experience had taught him to trust no one, especially the gods. But perhaps Poseidon had sent her to trick him? But he had little choice. If he clung to the mast, he would surely drift to a slow, agonizing death under the burning sun. The salt water had shrunk his belt, making it difficult to untie. He worked at it patiently until it came loose. Then he stripped off his clothes, fastened the sea nymph's scarf firmly back around his waist, and began swimming. For 2 days and 2 nights he swam with the currents. Often he had to rest, letting the current carry him along. At last, at dawn on the 3rd day, he came in sight of land. It was late afternoon before he finally dragged himself to shore, faint with exhaustion. He lay for a long time on the smooth pebbles, unable to move. When he found the strength to look around, he saw that the beach was a small inlet where the stream flowed out to the sea. He carefully untied Ino's scarf and dropped it into the clear running water, and then he knelt down and began drinking from the stream. As he drank, he began to shiver. Night was falling fast, and he had to shelter quickly. If he stayed on the beach, naked and exposed, he might not survive the night. He climbed up from the beach, keeping close to the bank of the stream until he came to a dense coppice. There he found two bushy olive trees that had grown into one another to form a natural shelter. Gathering up armfuls of leaves, he spread them on the ground for comfort and warmth. Then he collapsed into his makeshift bed with the soothing song of the stream in his ears, and he sank into a deep sleep.